What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I just wanted to make one more video on The Mandalorian Season 2, just giving my full overview of the season and what I thought of it as a whole, breaking down, not fully breaking down, but just kind of looking into each episode briefly and talking about what I liked and if my opinions have changed on certain episodes now that we have the full season out. And also just rectifying problems that I had, I mentioned in my review of Chapter 16 that I had a problem with the Darksaber rules. Something popped up that actually rectified my problems with that, so we'll talk about that later. But starting off, we'll talk about Chapter 9, The Marshal. Just going over it again. I still think it's a solid episode. I liked the character of Cobb Vanth. I liked the introduction to him. I liked the tease for Boba Fett, and I just thought it was a solid episode. It was a fun adventure. It humanized certain aspects of Star Wars, like the Sand People. I still like it. I still think it's a good episode. Then we have Chapter 10. Still not one I'm super keen on. I didn't like how Mando was acting just really rude towards that one woman, and I didn't like how all the characters were acting stupid and out of character, like Baby Yoda. And Baby Yoda, I just kind of have a problem with over the entire season because he doesn't really do much. The only times he uses the Force is to get food, unlike the first season where he actually had a purpose and he was helpful and actually had a stake in the plot. In this season, well, he certainly has a stake in the plot, but it feels like he could have done more to actually help Mando and help out the characters that he was in connection with rather than just use the Force to get food. Like in the first season, he uses the Force to stop the Mudhorn, and he uses it to heal Grief Karga. In this season, he doesn't really use it for anything productive or helpful. He just kind of uses it for his own advantage, which I guess kind of shows how Baby Yoda could go down a dark path, but it just didn't really fully work for me. I just wasn't the biggest fan of Baby Yoda in this season in particular. I said I didn't love him, and I don't dislike Baby Yoda, but he's definitely not my favorite aspect of the show, because he just is used as an amplifier to make Din Djarin more interesting as a character. So, yeah. And that episode as a whole just didn't do a lot for me. It was okay with, the spider thing, and they set up the New Republic guys, looking for Mando and, trying to help him out a little bit. I guess that was okay, but it really didn't have any effect on the overall plot and could have been cut out entirely, and it wasn't really that important. It's the only episode this season that had really zero plot progressions or any advancements made in that department, so not the biggest fan of Chapter 10. Then we have Chapter 11, The Heiress. I did like The Heiress. I think, I liked the introduction of Bo-Katan. I believe that she is a good continuation of her Clone Wars counterpart. She really did encapsulate that character well. I should say Katie Sackhoff encapsulated the character perfectly in live action. And, that was definitely the draw of the episode. If you ignore that, the plot wasn't really anything special. It was just Mando helping out some people again, which is kind of what a lot of the episodes in this season were about. But it was okay. It was definitely a decent episode, but there wasn't a ton going on, really, if you just take out the fact that Bo is back and she's in live action. It's just kind of a basic thing, he's got to help them take the ship. It was an okay episode, but there was nothing really spectacular about it, in my opinion, besides, seeing Bo back. Then Chapter 12, The Siege, another one I didn't really love. I don't want to sound overly negative about this season because I do like this season, but I didn't love all the episodes. So then we have Chapter 12, The Siege, yeah. Didn't love this one. It just felt kind of like a little bit too easy. The main mission is he goes back to Navarro to get the ship fixed, but he also helps out Kara and Grief to take out this Imperial base so that, the Imperials have no say or control over the planet. But I just felt like it was a little too easy. They break in, they accomplish their mission almost instantly. Then you find out a little bit about what the Imperials are doing with the cloning and all that. But then there's just this elongated chase scene with zero consequence or stakes because we know the characters won't die. So it's just this elongated chase scene. The thing that I think would have worked better is if they had the chase scene be, on the way there. So there's some kind of consequence. Okay, will they or will they not accomplish their mission? But the problem with the way they structured the episode is that they accomplish their mission almost immediately and then have a chase scene on the way back, which I think is a bad structuring format. I don't think that's a good way to structure a story. I think if you want to tell an episode like that, have the chase be on the way there, and the kind of consequence or stake that you have in your mind is, okay, will they or will they not be able to accomplish their mission? But they're able to accomplish their mission very easily. It's just, oh, will they be able to get back? Which, like, no question they will, because these characters aren't going to die yet. And they never die in this season, so it was kind of meandering. Like, you know, you found out a little bit of stuff. They set up the Dark Troopers, which ultimately weren't really a big thing. Like, even when they finally got some screen time in, like, Chapter 8, they weren't really a big thing. Like, they didn't really do a ton. So, yeah. And they set up the cloning thing, which still has not been concluded. We still don't know what they were doing with the blood, necessarily. Or with Grogu's blood, so just really wasn't overly impressed with the episode. And it's all watchable. Like, the thing I want to say about this entire season is, I think all of it is watchable. Like, with the first season, if I'm to watch the first season again, I'm going to skip chapters 4, 5, and 6, because those are kind of fillery, and they do ultimately lead into plot points in this season, like Bill Burr coming back, and the Boba Fett tease at the end of Chapter 5, but they just, on their own, don't really work that well, besides setting up plot points in the next season, which is why I think this season is an improvement upon the first one, because they actually do explore plot lines that were set up. But that's what I mean, is that the episodes in the first season, looking back, do have more significance because they set up plot points, but beyond that, they don't really have a lot of significance or entertainment value on their own, at least for me. So I really just preferred all the episodes in this season. Even The Passenger, I preferred to the episodes in the first season, like those fillery episodes, because I still found it more watchable and enjoyable than those. Or, yeah, I just found it more watchable than those ones, but I still didn't love that episode. So, yeah, The Siege I just didn't love it. It didn't do it for me. I thought it was fine. Like, it was watchable. There were little progressions made, like the tracking device being planted on the Razor Crest, obviously. But there just wasn't a ton to offer, you know, thematic-wise or theme-wise or morally. It just didn't do a lot for me. So that's pretty much it for The Siege. Then we'll talk about Chapter 13, The Jedi. Now, I have some things to talk about with this episode. And if you do not like differing opinions, then this might be, like, if you're opposed to differing opinions or viewpoints on things, then you might find this offensive. I don't know. I know a lot of people loved Ahsoka. I personally did not love Ahsoka, and in retrospect, I do not love this episode. The general plot is fine. There are cool reveals. You find out Grogu and you see Ahsoka in live action. And I will say, you know, as a fan, over the course of this year, I've watched some Rebels, I've watched some Clone Wars, I watched a majority of those shows, and I've come to really like Ahsoka as a character. And as a fan of Ahsoka, I won't deny it was cool to see her. And I think Rosario Dawson did a great job playing her physically. I think she was good. I thought the mannerisms were captured perfectly. And she had some really good lines that felt exactly like lines that Ahsoka would say. Like when she tells Din to ask Grogu to take the rock, and he's like, that would be a first. Or she's like, oh, he'll listen to you. And Mando's like, that would be a first. And she's like, I like firsts. Good or bad, they're always memorable. That was totally an Ahsoka line. I really liked that. And I liked when Din's fighting her and she just kind of smiles a little bit. Like, it's just this very innocent, you know, smile. Like, I love stuff like that. That was perfect. Like, that perfectly captures Ahsoka. But the one thing I was not happy about that other people don't seem to have a problem with is the fact that she murders people in this episode. She brutally slices up all of these guys. And, okay, look, there's going to be excuses made. Like, okay, she's a more hardened edge character now. Like, she's older, she's more mature. She's not as idealistic as she was in the Clone Wars. Now, the way I always saw Ahsoka's character is a character that is kind of like the Batman type, like from Batman Begins, when Batman jumps off the train and he says that line to Ra's al Ghul about, I don't have to kill you, or I won't kill you, but I don't have to save you. Something along those lines, right? I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. I always saw Ahsoka as that character. She only killed or like seriously hurt people when they weren't completely morally correct or innocent people. Like the Death Watch after murdering the village. She kills a couple Mandalorians in that episode. She decapitates like 4 of them, but they weren't innocent people. They like murdered people. So I don't really see that as a big deal. And like in the Trandoshan arc where she gets captured, like her and these other Padawans get captured by the Trandoshans, she kills the guy at the end by accident, but I don't think she knew she was going to kill him, and that those people were obviously not morally correct because they were murdering like young Padawans. So I always saw her as that character that was kind of like, okay, I don't have to kill you, but I don't have to save you, and she would only kill when absolutely necessary or in self-defense, or if those people were not morally correct. In the Clone Wars, in the finale of the Clone Wars, she won't kill the clones. She said to Rex, these men may be willing to die, but I'm not going to be the one to kill them. So she can't do anything to save them. Her priority is to save her and Rex, but she won't do anything to hurt them. She won't kill them. Her main priority is to like survive, but she won't kill her friends because she knows they're morally correct people. They aren't bad people. They're just being forced into a bad situation. The thing we do not know is if the people working for the magistrate in this episode are bad people. Like they're like obviously the magistrate is like torturing the citizens of this little town. They're stringing them up and, you know, not letting them talk to people or else they get punished. You know, a very cruel person. But we don't know if the people working for her are being forced into that situation. We don't know if they're being forced to work for her. We don't know if they are morally correct. You know, we don't know all this stuff about these characters. Maybe there's a book or something will be written, or there will be some explanation given, like they weren't morally correct people and they were just doing it to be evil, you know? But like, I think probably these people are being forced into this situation by the magistrate or are being threatened by her, and they're just doing it to, you know, get paid or support their family, something like that, right? So I just find it weird that Ahsoka would just kill these people without remorse. And I get it, you know, she's a more hardened-edged character, but for me, that just goes against who Ahsoka's character is. It just doesn't feel like her to me. And, you know, I understand, you know, a lot of people are happy to see her, and I'm not going to deny, it was cool to see Ahsoka, and I don't want to sound ungrateful for being able to see Ahsoka in live action. I thought that was great, and I think Rosario Dawson did a great job, and I'm looking forward to her show. I hope she can do as good a job as she did here, and I hope they can rectify the problems that I have with this character in this episode. But I just can't believe that Dave Filoni wrote and directed this episode, The Jedi, and didn't consider the fact that he's basically assassinating the character that he created. You know, at least that's my outlook on it. If you disagree, that's fine. But for me, this just wasn't Ahsoka. It just didn't feel like her, you know, killing people, you know, without remorse, and also acting all innocent. It's like, did she kill the magistrate? We don't know. We see her holding a lightsaber to her neck, and we don't see the magistrate again, so she probably killed her. Even then, she wasn't a completely morally correct people, so I can somewhat justify that. But since we have no background on these people, she could be murdering innocent people that are being forced into a bad situation, similar to the clones. And Ahsoka seems to have been here for a while trying to liberate this town. So it's just like, I just find it so weird. And like, her first question for the Mandalorian is, were there people being taken captive? Like, are they taking the citizens captive? And her first thing that she says is, we have to save them. We have to free them, right? So the first thing she thinks about is freeing the innocent. But at the same time, she could be murdering innocent people who are being forced into a bad situation, like the clones. I hope you guys can see how I'm justifying this and how this makes sense in my mind. But for me, it didn't feel like Ahsoka. So I think Rosario Dawson did a good job. The prosthetics on her in live action were perfect. I think Rosario Dawson did a good job playing her, but the writing for her was so off here. And I also just didn't find it in character for her to not help Din Djarin, because he's like, okay, we're gonna have a deal. You know, I'll help you, and then you train Grogu. And then at the end, she just goes, I can't help you. Bye. And I just find that out of character, because in Clone Wars this year, in the season 7, the second arc of season 7, I believe it's the Martez sisters, they ask her, oh, why are you helping us? And she says something like, when I see people who need help, I help them no matter what. I guess it's just who I am. Right? And I just don't find it in character for her to not help him. She just basically not guilt tripped him, but tricked him into helping her liberate this town by creating a false deal for him, and then was just like, sorry, can't help you, bye. Like, that just doesn't feel like Ahsoka. So, all those elements combined, the writing for her in the way that she murders people without remorse, and the actions of her character just not fulfilling her word, fulfilling her promise. I just don't find that in character for Ahsoka at all, and I just can't believe that it was Dave Filoni, who was the sole creative voice on this episode, and she just acted so out of character. I know a lot of people will disagree, and I'm not going to deny that it was cool to see Ahsoka in live action. I think that was awesome, and I think Rosario Dawson played her well, and I'm looking forward to seeing her play her again in the future, but it just didn't work for me fully. Just didn't love that. That's one of my biggest problems with this season, just portraying this character. And I understand that not all people watching this show will have seen Clone Wars and Rebels and will have all the background on this character. For some people, this is a new character, and they're introducing her to a wider audience, the audience that just likes to watch live action stuff. I understand that. But for me, as a fan of the other shows, he's trying to pay tribute to Ahsoka's character beforehand, and to trying to be respectful to fans of the other shows, while also introducing new audiences to this character. But it just didn't work for me. I didn't like the way they portrayed Ahsoka. I think Rosario Dawson once again played her well. I'm looking forward to seeing her in the future, but I just found the writing for Ahsoka to be so off. It doesn't work for me, and I understand it works for most people, but for me I just didn't connect with this portrayal of Ahsoka. It just didn't work for me. So that's ultimately why the Jedi episode, which I know a lot of people say is their favorite episode of the season, and a lot of people love it, it just didn't fully work for me because of the portrayal of Ahsoka Tano. Then moving on to chapter 14, The Tragedy. I thought this was a really good episode. I think the introduction of Boba was cool, although I still don't fully understand how he was able to track the Mandalorian, and I also don't understand why, in the 5-year time span where at least almost 5 years, when Cobb Vanth found the armor on Tatooine and Boba's just been walking around, I don't understand why Boba didn't go up to him and be like, hey, can I have my armor back? Because Cobb Vanth seems like an honorable guy, and he probably would have given the Boba back the armor if he'd done something to help him in exchange, like Mando did. So I don't know why Boba wouldn't have asked him in that time, and he just had to track down the Mandalorian. I understand, dramatic effect, but they didn't really come up with a good reason for why he didn't just ask Cobb Vanth before, and just waited for someone else to take it and then tracked him down. I just didn't really love that. But I did like the reintroduction of Fennec actually making a character that was somewhat disappointing in the first season, and a character that was somewhat lame, into kind of a badass. That was really cool. And there were real stakes in this episode. The Razor Crest got destroyed, the ship that we've been with from episode 1, and Grogu got taken, which was a good cliffhanger. I think it was a solid episode. It was the shortest episode of the season, but I think it was, in some ways, one of the best episodes of the season. Then we have Chapter 15, The Believer, another one that I loved, probably my favorite episode of the season. Really well directed. There were some really great action shots, like when Mando and Bill Burr running across the roof, and then you see the Slave One just spinning around over top of them, coming to a landing so they can jump onto it. Really cool action shots. The score, obviously, Ludwig Göransson, that whole scene, I'm really disappointed they didn't release that track in the official soundtrack on, Friday last week, because man, the track when they're escaping the Imperial facility is awesome. But there were real interesting moral there were really interesting moral questions introduced in this episode that a lot of the other episodes in this show just don't really bother to touch, and I thought that was really good. And just, giving development for Bill Burr, just Boba gets some cool moments, just everyone got a cool moment, and it was just a really morally interesting episode. And then we get to the finale. Now, this is what I want to talk about. There are still problems that I have with this finale. I feel that Bo-Katan should have died. I feel that Moff Gideon should have taken out Bo-Katan, and as her last dying wish, she asks Mando to rebuild Mandalore as a society, and that sets in motion the plot for the next season. Rather, we just have her standing up in the background, and there's no reason for him just shooting her. I just found that really pointless and a really annoying misdirect that was just I don't know why they did that. It could have been a mistake. Maybe she wasn't supposed to be standing in the background, but just like that one guy standing in the background of chapter 12, it could have been a mistake, but I feel like they should have drawn a conclusion to that and should have set up the plot of the next season rather than just depending on Luke fan service. And I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I still do think that the main cast of characters should have put up a little bit of a fight against the Dark Troopers before Luke showed up, Deus Ex Machina chopping them up. That's just my opinion, but I just didn't love that Luke did all the work for our main characters. I think the main characters should have done more, and they should have put up more of a fight. Now, to rectify one of my problems that I had with the episode was the Darksaber rules. And I watched a video by this guy that I follow on YouTube called Thor Skywalker. Now, he discussed the fact that when the last time we saw this happen, where someone, Sabine in particular in Rebels, handed Bo-Katan the Darksaber, under those circumstances, the people of Mandalore believed in her. And what Moff Gideon says in this episode is, the Darksaber doesn't hold power, it's the story that does, and that it depends on the people's belief in the person holding the weapon, not the weapon itself. Like, if you're holding the weapon and you go to Mandalore, the Mandalorians, like, as a people, won't follow you just because you're holding it. They have to believe that you are a strong and capable leader. And in that case, if Bo reclaimed the Darksaber from Moff Gideon and went back to Mandalore and proved herself as a worthy leader once again, then the people might follow her. But going back saying, this guy beat up Moff Gideon for me, gave me the weapon, and now follow me, that wouldn't be a good story. And neither would her going back to Mandalore saying, oh, I beat up this one guy, Din Djarin, who won it for me, and then I just had to beat him up. Here I am, here's the weapon, So that's what the logic is. The logic is that there are no rules surrounding the weapon. It's the story that counts and the people's belief in her. And at the point in Rebels when it was brought to her, despite the former owner not being beaten in combat, it was because all of the houses of Mandalore at that point were willing to follow her and were willing to accept her as leader. And that's why she accepted the Darksaber, not because there were any real rules surrounding it originally. So in this situation, the reason why she can't accept it is because it wouldn't restore her honor after having it taken from her. Like, just accepting it, saying that, oh, this one guy took it for me, or saying that you just beat up the one guy who won it for you, wouldn't be a good story to tell the people of Mandalore, and they most likely would not accept you as a leader if that's what you came back and told them. So that rectified my problem, and I'm not sure if that was intentional on the writer's part, but if it was, I have to apologize to them because that video really opened my eyes to it. And if you have not seen it, you guys should go watch Thor Skywalker's video. I'll leave a link in the description to his video, and you guys should go check it out because it really rectified my problems with that. But despite that, I still have problems with this finale. I did not like the Bo-Katan, fake out death. I didn't like that Moff Gideon was acting more silly. I didn't like that Luke did all the work for them. I still have a lot of problems with this finale and the execution of it, but like I've said before in my initial review, there are still things that I like about this episode, and the things that I like about it have been bumped up because my problem with the Darksaber rules has been rectified by Thor Skywalker's video. So if you guys want to go watch his video, go ahead. Now, unless the writers of the show didn't intend for that to be the case, and it was just like some, this guy's just coming up with a theory, and they actually don't resolve this in the next season, then it will become a problem again. But for now, if that's what they were intending, then the writers of this show really know what they're doing, and I should not be questioning them anymore because I was too dumb to figure that out. But yeah, go watch Thor Skywalker's video. I'll try and leave a link in the description or the pinned comment or something so you guys can go check it out because it rectified my problems and it really does a good job of explaining what the writers were probably trying to go for with that episode. But that's pretty much it on my thoughts. My whole overview of Season 2. I think it was better than Season 1. Mando's character arc was pretty solid. This character from the first season that we saw being this religious zealot, his beliefs are shattered and he has to give it all up to save this person that he cares about most. I thought that was very effective, and I thought that most of the character returns were effective and a good continuation of their characters from the earlier shows, Bo-Katan and Boba being perfect, like, carryovers from Clone Wars and Rebels. Well, in Boba's case, just Clone Wars. But I did not love the portrayal of Ahsoka. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but Ahsoka did not work for me. And not everything in this season worked for me, but I think it's a better season than the first one, and that's just my opinion. You guys, please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on the season as a whole? What's your overview? Do you think it was better than season 1? What do you think? Just give me all your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.